I think we're good to go, Wendy. Perfect, Wendy, and we're recording. All good?
Yes, we're recording, Emily. Thank you for your patience with me. Sorry about that. I was just having a little glitch. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Assistive Technology Part 2. If you were able to join us a month ago where we talked about assistive technology essentials, this presentation is meant to be a continuation of that. Over to you, Emily.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. So I will just go on to our first slide here. So just a couple introductions. So my name is Emily Tack, and I'm the Assistive Technology Advisor here at Trillium Demonstration School. I've previously worked in Dufferin Peel and Halton Catholic, and I just started here this year as the ATA, so it's been super exciting so far. Primarily, my role has been focused on supporting student learning with customizing assistive technology, getting all the students' devices personalized and equipped and ready for them. I have a background in spec ed, teaching ELL, and assessment and evaluation. So I'm bringing all of those expertise over here to my new role to support students.
Thanks so much for that, Emily, and we're certainly lucky to have you here. My name is Wendy Farkas. I'm a resource services consultant at Trillium Demonstration School. I'm also an Ontario certified teacher, and I'm seconded from the Waterloo Region District School Board to the Provincial Schools Branch. My role here is to help educators and school boards across Ontario who are seeking support for their students with severe learning disabilities and ADHD. I am a huge fan of project-based learning and hands-on learning, especially educational technology and assistive technology in the classroom. I've worked with exceptional students throughout the entire duration of my career, and I'm so pleased to be here with you today to talk about assistive technology supports in the classroom. Over to you, Emily.
Perfect. Thanks, Wendy. I'll just continue on to our first slide of today. So for those of you who participated in the part 1 of our assistive technology webinar, we created an exit card for everybody to fill out, just asking what everyone's takeaways were from the first webinar and what they would like to see more of in our webinar today. So we, for the most part, got an overwhelming response to focus on demonstrating assistive technology and showing practical applications of assistive technology and educational technology in the classroom. So that is what we will be focusing on in our webinar today. So thank you all for filling that out, and we hope you enjoy. So I'll just quickly go over our agenda for today. So as I just said, we covered the exit ticket review, and that will be informing most of our webinar today. Wendy will start off by talking about some more accessibility and equity regarding assistive technology, so some misconceptions about AT, and then an AT Select, which is a great resource that Wendy will go into some more detail about. And then we'll move into our practical applications. So here you can see a list of the various resources we'll be demonstrating for you, some practical applications in the classroom and how you can kind of customize all of these different programs to your specific learners. And then we'll wrap up with some great resources for you to take away, and we'll explain some more of that later on. And just some Zoom features that we'll just quickly go over right now. So you can see us, but we can't see you. So if you want to ask any questions or have any comments, we'll just ask that you write them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom bar, or you can write them in the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have a little Q&A so we can go over any of the questions that you may have. We have our cameras on right now, but once we dive into the presentation, we will be turning our cameras off. Anything else you'd like to add, Wendy, before we get started?
No, I think that's great. Just please do, if you have any questions, just as you think of them so that you don't forget, go on ahead and type them into the chat room, and we will make sure that we get to all of them towards the end of the presentation. At this time, we're just going to turn off our video feeds to help us navigate through all of the mechanics of our presentation, and we'll turn them back on later on for our Q&A period. Thank you, Emily. So during our last webinar, we explored how assistive technology can level the playing field and really ensure that every student gets what they need to be successful. I wanted to share some research with you today. According to Bronwyn Lamond of the Academic Intervention Lab with the Department of Applied Psychology and Human Development at the University of Toronto, the three biggest misconceptions about assistive technology are the following. First misconception is that students who use assistive technology are getting an unfair advantage over other students in the classroom. So AT or assistive technology is prescribed by psychologists and other professionals to support students with learning challenges by making classroom and curriculum expectations more accessible. AT does not offer privilege. Without it, students with learning challenges would decline academically, despite they may have higher cognitive abilities. The second common misconception is that assistive technology will just fix everything. It will fix all of the challenges that the student is experiencing or any deficits that they may need remediating. Assistive technology will not fix a skill deficit. Rather, it's a tool or a set of tools that augments the lagging skill and makes curriculum more accessible for that student. And the third misconception, common misconception, is that training is absolutely crucial to student success when implementing assistive and educational technology in your classroom. So students can learn to use assistive technology fairly quickly. A lot of our students in this generation especially are very good with tech, and they're great problem solvers, and they can figure out how to use things. I think my daughter knows how to use my tablet and my phone better than I do. But so teachers are encouraged to actually just demonstrate as many practical applications using assistive technology in the classroom as they can. And this will also encourage and facilitate use of the tools that you'd like your students to use, or the tools that they're going to be required to use in order to be successful. So we really hope that the resources that we've gathered today are going to help you get started along that pathway. So next, we're just going to chat a little bit about AT Select. Emily, if you could just guide us over to the next slide. Thank you, Emily. AT Select is actually a website developed by Dr. Todd Cunningham and the Academic Intervention Lab at OISE. This research was developed to support both parents, clinicians, and teachers to select assistive technology for students with learning challenges. So the website, which we'll show you in just a minute, sorts texts by task, which are intended mostly for parents and teachers. And they also sort texts as an assistive technology by skill, and that section is intended for clinicians for the purposes of prescribing tech on psychoeducational assessments. So let's just take a moment to explore the site now. Emily, I'm just going to get you to click on the hyperlink for us. Towards the end of the week, we will be sending out the recording of this webinar as well as our slide deck. So you will have this, all of the resources and hyperlinks as well that we are sharing today. Thank you so much. So if you could just navigate back up toward the top. You can navigate through all of these different menus, but I'm just going to focus for today on the first two, if that's okay. So the very first one are texts by task. If you could click on that for me, Em. So this is the section that is meant for mostly parents and even teachers, and it breaks tasks down and helps us to identify what type of assistive technology would be needed or associated with being successful in doing this particular task. So you can see we have projects in the classroom, test taking, prep, instruction, math, and writing. So Emily, I'm just going to ask you, thank you for that, to scroll back down, and I want you to click on the last one, projects and the classroom. And then if you could click on the presentation option for me, that would be super. Thank you. So presentations actually require a really broad area of skills and can be a huge undertaking for students with learning disabilities or students even with a lack of confidence. Presentations require research skills, gathering data, compiling information, effectively communicating that information. And here are the academic domains that are involved in that. So if you look, yes, thank you, Emily, under that heading of academic domains, you see reading, writing, organization, sensory input, oral language, motor output, and attention. And these are all deficit areas for a typical student with a learning disability. So if you could just click on attention for me. Okay, so we're going to go into just this one academic domain. Click on attention, and it should take us to, oh, sorry, click on orienting. Click on orienting. Thank you. Thank you, sorry about that. So when we talk about students that are struggling to maintain attention in class, and we talk about skills that require orienting someone's attention, here are some of the recommendations of tech. It could be educational technology, could be assistive technology that a teacher could use in the classroom, or that a parent could even encourage a student to use from home. And as you can see on the top left, we have chewing gum. So chewing gum has a calming effect for students with exceptionalities. It can relieve stress. It can kind of help to give them a little bit of movement and a little bit of stimulation if they're feeling stressed in environments, or there's a lot going on in an environment. Can kind of help to keep them focused if they're sitting through a lesson, or having to work through a prolonged period of time. So this is what we call a low tech. When we talk about assistive technology, we're not only speaking about electronics or computer-based things. As we mentioned in our previous webinar, assistive technology can be low tech, like chewing gum, or having a slant board to write on, or using a graphic organizer with that student. But here are some recommendations that you can make. And if there are any certs out there in the audience with us today, and teachers are developing IEPs or looking at revisiting those IEPs, if you're finding that a student who has an LD and possibly even an ADHD diagnosis is really struggling with just paying, sustaining, and maintaining attention in class, these are absolutely some accommodations that you can recommend that they put on the IEP. And I'm not going to get you to do this now, Em, but you can actually click on each of those thumbnails, and it gives you an overview of what that technology is. And in some cases, when it's more of a high-tech tech, like for example, website blockers, there is an overview of the various web blockers out there, and kind of gives you a sense of their effectiveness and what they cost. Thank you so much for that, Em. If you could go back to the main page for me. So yeah, thank you. And now we're going to take a look at text by skill. So if you could click on that one for me, Em. And this is where we would direct clinicians when they are conducting psych ed assessments, and they're maybe prescribing assistive technology or making recommendations on the psych ed and the summary for what teachers and educators can do to support the students' learning who may be struggling in class. So here we see that the text by skill are broken down by academic domain, those domains being attention, reading, sensory, oral language, organization, motor function, writing, and math. And I'm just going to get you to, yeah, see, and the cool thing on this website, it's so comprehensive. When you hover over a thumbnail, oftentimes a description comes up. So a math is a pretty straightforward one, but perhaps you're working with someone new to your CERT team, or new to the teaching world, and they might need to know what oral language is, or what that would look like. So Emma, if you could click on math for me, click on the math thumbnail. Thank you. And then we are looking for fluency. So towards the bottom half, when we see it says numeric operations, thank you. So if you look at fluency there, okay, we're going to look at a student that might be struggling with math fluency, and just kind of scroll on over to where it says drill programs and click on that for me. And as you just saw, when you hover over fluency, it gives you a little bit of a definition. So here we have an overview of what drill programs or computer-based math tools are. for teachers that might need that information and support. And as you can scroll down, talks a little bit about the research, advantages and disadvantages of these web-based math tools, as well as any important things to consider. And this is a real benefit here as well. We also have a table. So certainly AT Select has not, researched every single math tool out there, but they certainly have done a lot of research, and they compare the different products here for you. And they range in products that need to be paid for or licensed to products that are free as well. So these are also tools that you can refer parents to if you're noticing a student is really struggling with math fluency, for example. Setting the parent up with a Prodigy account and sending that home with some coaching to help support the student in the evenings a couple of times a week would definitely be very beneficial for the student as well. So next we're going to talk about practical applications and demonstrations. So Emily's going to return back to the main presentation, and she's going to get us started.
Perfect, Wendy. Thank you so much. So yes, as Wendy just said, now we will kind of dive into our practical applications for a variety of assistive technology that we decided to show to you all today. So first we will be starting with the highlighting tool. So I will be demonstrating the highlighting tool specifically used in Google Read and Write. So it's a really helpful tool for students to use. It's great for highlighting the main ideas and supporting details in different documents and slides that students might be working with, whether it's an assignment task that they have been given or something that they're supposed to be reading. Highlighting your work will definitely become very helpful for students to sort out their ideas as they are working on the projects. So I will dive right into the actual highlighting tool. So I've attached a hyperlink here to a example of an assignment that a student might be given. So this is a science project that students were given from a teacher here at our school at Trillium. So this is just the basic outline for the assignment. So if a student is given this, it might be helpful to kind of break down the assignment and chunk it just to help their learning needs. So I'm going to open Read and Write, which is up here right at the top. I've already added it as a Chrome extension. So I'm going to open it up. And here we see the Google Read and Write toolbar, which has all of these lovely functions. So like I said, we'll be specifically focusing on the highlighter. So it could be helpful for students to maybe highlight some questions so that they know all the things that they're being asked to do. So the nice part about the highlighting tool is that there's a variety of colors. So we'll highlight some of the questions in green. That way the students know that when they're looking back at their assignment, all of the questions that they are being asked are in green. And then maybe they want to kind of have one sentence that kind of encompasses the entire goal of the assignment. So up here, the goal is listed at the very first paragraph. So I'm going to highlight that in pink so I know exactly what it is that we need to do. So now that we've highlighted a few different things, and the teacher has already highlighted some things that she wanted the students to make note of, but as students are able to highlight some of the extra things they want to highlight, they can actually collect highlights into a new document. So if you look at the Google Read and Write toolbar, there's this option here, which says collect highlights. So when you click on that, this little pop-up comes up, and pretty much once you press OK, it will generate a new document of your highlights. So it is coming up here. And it has now brought all of the different highlighted things from the original document to a new one. So this can be really helpful for students to kind of focus on certain areas of their work, so it's a little less overwhelming when there's a lot of text. So now here we know, okay, this is our end goal here. These are the questions I have to answer. So it helps students focus on the task at hand and just to maintain their organization. So it will automatically save as it's Google. So yeah, the students will now have a new document to work with. So that is just a little bit about the highlighting tools here. So again, these are the highlighters, and then to collect highlights, it is this button. So kind of like the challenges that Wendy mentioned from the AT Select website that students might face with organization. This can be a really helpful tool. I will go back to our presentation and we'll move on to our next demo. Take it away, Wendy.
Thanks, Emily. And the neat thing about, I just wanted to add, if that's okay, Em, to the Google Read and Write Highlighter tool is it's not solely for use on a Google document. So you can absolutely use it on a web-based platform. And I think back to the days when I was a high school cert in the Waterloo region, and students would come down to our resource room for support, and perhaps the teacher had assigned an article or two for the student to read that they had to be able to identify main points and supporting details, or provide a summary of the article, or even compare multiple articles and write a summary on those, or prepare a persuasive piece. So absolutely, this is synchronous with web-based materials as well. So very versatile that way. I'm really excited to talk today about Google Lit Trips. Just out of curiosity, I'm wondering if anybody in our audience today has ever used Lit Trips before. So if you have used a Google Lit Trip, if you don't mind, just drop a yes or no in the chat room just to let us know. I'm just curious about that because I recently discovered Google Lit Trips and I think they're awesome. So what is a Lit Trip? Oh yeah, we've got a few answers. So far, no, never. Okay. Oh yes, yay. I'm excited because I'm so excited about Lit Trips and I hope that you will be too after this today. So what is a Lit Trip? A Lit Trip is essentially a Google expedition that's created on Google Earth. So if you have experience using Google Earth before or creating Google expeditions, it's very similar, except a Lit Trip is where you select a book for students and then create a storyboard. So you would find and plot different geographic locations on Google Earth to create an interactive expedition and really give the student the opportunity to like live the book and really explore and imagine what it's like to be there. And I see an excellent question popping up in the chat. I'm going to get to that in a second. Google Lit Trips are free. You can definitely create your own, but we're going to go visit a website in just a second. So there is a googlelittrips.org website that we're going to take a look at. Creating an account is free. You have to create an account and then you download a Lit Trip. And what happens is a Google file is shared with you via email. And then once you click on the link, what ends up happening is it uploads the Lit Trip for you directly. So, Em, if you don't mind, could you just click on that first hyperlink, googlelittrips.org, so that we can show this to the audience? So, as you can see down the left-hand column, like towards the middle, you can see that it sorts Lit Trips by grade. So, Em, just click on a grade range for our audience to see as a sample. So she's selected grade 6 to 8. And if you have a moment to look at this website when we send you the link, most of these Lit Trips are created by retired language teachers who volunteer their own time. So not every single book that a language teacher in elementary or a high school English teacher would use would be on here, but there certainly is a good selection. So it shows you the selection per category. And again, it's free. You just download the file. So Em, if I could just get you to please return to our presentation. And I've gone ahead and I've downloaded 2 Lit Trips to even share with you. So you don't even have to go and create an account quite yet if you're still sort of testing the waters. So I've downloaded one for the Kite Runner, which as a high school cert, I was often supporting students in grade 11 applied English with this novel. And then I've also downloaded Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which would be more of a higher elementary reading level. So just click on the file link for the Kite Runner, if you don't mind, please. And I just want to quickly show it. So it's just going to take a minute. Anyone who's used Google Earth in the past knows it does take a little bit to get going. So what it will do is it will take us to Google Earth and it will just load those settings for us. And looks like we're lagging just a little bit. Hopefully Hopefully we get, there we go. That's awesome. Okay, so if you can see on the left hand of your screen, starting from the top, we have the title of the kite runner, and just scrolling down, you see they have a description of the book and an overview. And so each plot point is based on chapters in the book. So what you can do is you can get the students to go through these as you're reading through the book. You know, a typical high school English teacher might assign a couple of chapters at a time, and then maybe they decide to visit the area mentioned in the lit trip after that. So Em, I'm just going to get you to click on one. We're not going to go through them all, but if you want to click on item, say 2.1, for example. Yep, and just give it a minute. And then what happens, it's so cool, it kind of takes us to that chapter 2 in the novel, and the region that we're talking about in the novel. And so you see right in the center, it's taken us right there. You can zoom in so that you can really see what that region or area looks like. So you see your zoom tool down at the bottom is the plus sign. So you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can view street view, you can have a bird's eye view, and they can explore that region as they're reading about that region in the book. And then on the right-hand side, and this is the cool part about using the lit trips from that website, is because someone has done this whole piece for you, is they've typed an excerpt from that chapter and maybe some discussion startups or comprehension questions that you can use to engage discussion in class after the students have read that chapter. Now, this is the thing though, Google Earth, like the text that you see in front of you, is not compatible with Google Read and Write. So if Em was to try to enable Read and Write right now and press the play button, it actually wouldn't work. However, I have found a workaround. So if you do have a student with an LD who has like maybe a severe reading deficit and they've been prescribed Google Read and Write, what you can do is you can click and drag the text to highlight it and then copy it right into a Google document. And then you have a readable file and it's done. So a little bit of extra work for that student that might need that additional support, but well worth it considering you have this entire lit trip planned and all the work that's gone into that as well. All right, Emily, let's return to our presentation. And Emily's going to talk to us about portfolios next.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Wendy. So yes, I'm going to just talk a little bit now about portfolios and how that can be implemented in the classroom. So portfolios are a great way to kind of offer another way for students to demonstrate their learning, especially for students with LDs. Writing an essay or a paper or something like that might be a little daunting, and it can be kind of frustrating to have to feel that way. So why not offer another creative approach to demonstrating your learning? So portfolios can be used for all the different kinds of assessment, for, as, and of learning. So it's a great way for students to kind of gather their work over a period of time and have a portfolio to add to over the course of a few months or the semester or whatever it might be. And it's also a great summative assignment that students can kind of pick and choose what pieces they want to demonstrate to show their teacher what they have learned over the course of their time in school. So I will be showing a Google Slides example, and it's great to use Google Slides for portfolios. There is a template gallery, so students can kind of have a starting point for different ways to demonstrate their portfolio. So there's all these different templates to choose from. So they're laid out really nicely and are very visually appealing. So that's awesome. And as I mentioned before, it's also great to use to kind of customize the way students are portraying what they know. So as I mentioned, slides is what I'll be demonstrating today, but there's so many other ways to create portfolios. Adobe has a portfolio function. Canva is another popular tool to use to kind of create visually appealing pieces of work. So all of this stuff is just another option for you to consider. And Canva, for example, you can create it and then throw it in a Google slide. So it's kind of all there in a presentation form. So this is an example of a basic template for a student-led conference that teachers at our school have used. So this is something maybe for teachers to give to their students just as a very basic outline for things that they might want to include in a portfolio or a conference of some sort. So their interests, their strengths, areas of growth. So something for the teachers to use as a starting point. And then I'm going to show now the actual example that a student has created. So again, very personalized here. And I'm going to just go specifically to this slide. So we have here where the students have filled in their interests, things they like to do, their hobbies, and there's so many different visuals going on here. So without having to read the bottom sentence here, you can already tell the different things that students are interested in. And with this visual specifically, it's moving, it's definitely appealing to the eye. So something different for students to use and demonstrate their learning. And with the slides, you can create transitions between slides to kind of aid in those presentation skills. So if students might be nervous to actually present something like this out loud and in front of their peers or their teacher, a Google slide can be submitted. You can add an audio recording for students to have their voice over, so it might not have to be an in-person and live presentation, but they're still getting all their information across in a way that's more comfortable for them and can increase their confidence skills. I'm going to go back to our presentation now and continue on to the next slide. And Wendy, feel free to jump in.
Thanks. And just to add to that, if it's okay, Em, as a high school teacher, often I was working with students using Canva, it's a free web-based tool with lots of downloadable templates. So you can have students creating infographics to demonstrate what they know without having them, say, write an essay about it. Or one of the things that we do at Trillium is we try to engage our kids in the writing process. And these kids, typically, they don't have a good relationship with school in general, and reading and writing make them feel pretty bad about themselves. So getting them interested in the writing process and wanting to participate by maybe have them create a YouTube channel and write scripts for their YouTube videos that can be assessed, or start blogging. And Canva has all of these great social media free downloadable resources, so students can customize and create YouTube banners and social media profiles on there as well. So it takes a lot of traditional academic tasks and makes it a little bit more interesting and engaging for the typical student who is struggling, or a student that might have an LD or ADHD. So if you've attended our previous webinars and any webinars that I've been involved in, I have talked a lot about interactive whiteboards. So I'm not going to go into great length today because you may have attended one in the past, but we thought it important to talk a little bit about Microsoft Office tools as well. I mean, we talk a lot about Google. We're fans of Google here at the PDSB, but there are a lot of boards out there that are using Office 365 platforms as well. So when you're considering an interactive whiteboard such as this one, these are great for students with LDs and ADHD or struggling students in general, because they can they facilitate real-time collaboration. Participants can work remotely from various locations on their whiteboards, and it's such a great tool for encouraging collaboration, but also introducing the design thinking process and brainstorming. And it's a really neat tool as well for creating interactive teaching materials and manipulatives. So I took the time to compare Microsoft Whiteboard and Jamboard, and we've created a list for you here. Just in case you have access to both of these tools, I've used Jamboard a lot, and I'm a huge fan of Jamboard, but when I got the chance to really look at Microsoft Whiteboard, I'm even a bigger fan of that because it is jam-packed full of tools. So the tools that you see in the bulleted list that are highlighted in blue are the functionalities or capabilities that MS Whiteboard has that Jamboard does not. and Jamboard is a Google product. So MS Whiteboard, for example, has a built-in ruler. So if you're creating measurement manipulatives, you can upload items like rectangular prisms for a student to measure, and then use the built-in ruler to measure it and guide them through the process of solving that equation. Whereas you can do the same thing in Jamboard, but there's just a few extra steps because you have to create your own ruler. MS Whiteboard also allows you to add note grids, and then students, like, you can create a polling or a voting system in MS Whiteboard a little bit more easily than you can in Jamboard, because students can like different post-it notes and ideas. You can really zoom in and out and create lists and stickers. And it also has some built-in AI technology, which is really exciting. So, you know, if you've ever used Jamboard or any sort of like interactive text annotation tool, and you're using like your mouse or your finger or something on a mouse pad, and you're trying to say draw a circle, or you're trying to write some text and it's all kind of wonky and all over the place, Microsoft Whiteboard has the capability to recognize that handwriting and turn it into more legible font. And also it will take like a circle that's kind of wibbly wobbly and turn it into a perfect circle. So we're not going to look at these today, but I just wanted to let you know that I have dropped some interactive math templates and language templates for Jamboard. Just at the bottom of the page, you'll see 2 red hyperlinks. When you receive the slide deck and click on those, it will take you to some usable templates for both math and language-based activities that you are absolutely welcome to make a copy of and use in your classrooms and share with your colleagues. On the note of manipulatives, I know that Emily has prepared some math manipulatives for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Wendy. So yeah, we're going to move on to talking about math manipulatives. So that was a nice little segue right there. So I'm specifically going to be demonstrating Equatio today. So Equatio is a way to solve math problems digitally. So oftentimes I think people might have the idea that it's hard to do math online and it's not as tech savvy, but there are a lot of resources out there that make it easier for students, especially students with LDs, to complete their math work online. So I will kind of demonstrate a little bit what Equatio looks like and how we can use it. So one really cool feature of Equatio is that you can see speech to text math expressions. So you're able to actually read the expressions aloud, so that they're able to pop up right on your computer without having to go through the hassle of kind of drawing it out. So that's a great feature, and especially helpful for all the STEAM subjects. So math and science and anything that might require a little bit more of equations and that sort of stuff. Equatio is a great tool to use. And then I also wanted to point out here this hyperjox, or this picture of a hyperjox. So I will click on this and take us to the actual hyperjock itself. So this is a math unit that one of our teachers created here at Trillium. So it's a great resource to kind of have all of the different math activities, worksheets, assessments, all in one spot for students to access. And it's split up from the different parts of the unit. So again, very easy to navigate for students. And let's say a student decides to work on this distance and time worksheet. So you can open that up right here. So we have a copy of it, and I'm going to open it up with Google Docs. So these are some other ways to open it up. Wendy will be touching on Cami a little bit later, so I'm going to save that for her. But just so I can show you what Equatio looks like and how to use it, I will just pop up this worksheet here. So now we have a worksheet that students might have to work on online. So in order to make it a little bit easier for them, let's open up Equatio. So Equatio is an extension, so it's already downloaded on my device. And then it'll pop up as a toolbar right here at the bottom. So you're able to, like I said here, speech to text all the different math equations. You can have a screenshot reader, so it can have the questions and answers read to you aloud. The handwriting recognition, so if you are typing in here, let's just type in a basic equation, it'll transfer it on the right side of the screen to have it written out nicely so you're able to organize your work. So again, a great way for students to start practicing their math skills using tech, and to hopefully increase their confidence in this area as well. So Equatio alongside the HyperDoc that I showed you, and even what Wendy was talking about before with the interactive whiteboards, why not use Equatio with that so you can get the students to practice it all together. So it's nice here that all of these different assistive technologies can kind of be layered together and used at the same time. So for the sake of time, we'll continue on to our next part, but again, just wanted to highlight that the hyperlinks are also embedded in this slide right here.
Thanks a lot, Emily. I think we're going to run over time today, everyone. I'm so sorry about that, but we were so excited about this webinar today, and we really wanted to jam pack it with as many resources as possible for you. So we're probably going to finish today at about 1 o'clock, another 15 minutes. If you have to leave, we totally respect that. You have a lot of things on the go these days. We are recording the session, and so if you do have to excuse yourself early, no problem. We'll send you the recording and the slide deck shortly. So many of us have tried to recreate materials that we had previously used in the regular classroom environment, but posting materials online does not necessarily mean that they're accessible to students with reading deficits or LD learners. Students with learning disabilities will often struggle with tasks that require reading and writing to demonstrate knowledge. So when sharing digital worksheets, ensure that they're in an accessible format, such as Google Docs or MS Word. That's the easiest thing to do. And then your learners will be able to use text-to-speech and speech-to-text functions. For Google Docs, it would be Google Read and Write. For MS Word, it would be Immersive Reader. But if you can't do that and you're scanning worksheets or you're taking pictures on your phone or a camera and uploading them to the platforms that you're using, you have to ensure that the students have access to and know how to use some text annotation tools such as DocHub or Kami. Some boards have started using PDF Reader as well. And I know out there some of these tools might be red tools in your board, so I would just encourage you to check with your spec ed consultant and find out which text annotation tool they would recommend that you use. Here at Trillium, we absolutely love Kami, so we're going to talk about that now. Em's going to just click on the math thumbnail. Thank you. And then she is going to go to the top of the PDF and click on Open with Kami. So Kami is a Chrome extension that Emily has already installed on her browser so that we can then take that PDF and we can open it up in Kami. So here's the thing. When you scan something on the photocopier, when you take a picture of something with your cell phone or a camera and you upload it to your classroom, that's super, it's great, you've shared it, but speech-to-text tools won't work. So you have to take that file, that digital file, and convert it to an optical character recognition file. So that means it's now in a format that speech-to-text or text-to-speech can work. That's where Kami or DocHub come into play. That's what they're going to do. They're going to convert that file for you. So you have typical tools, and this is the free version of Kami. By the way, there's a licensed version. So you'll see, if you're looking at the left hand of the screen, the toolbar, you'll see like a lock symbol on some of the features because we're using the free version. However, the free version works just fine for what a student might need, because there are other tools out there that your board might license, like Equatio, so you don't need the equation tool in Kami, or they have Google Read and Write or Immersive Reader, so you don't need to have the speech-to-text and text-to-speech function in Kami. So you have a pen tool that you can click on, and students can select the pen tool. Em, if you could just demonstrate that, or highlighter tool. Thank you. Yep, there you go. And they can pick a color, they can pick the thickness of it. Just go ahead and pick any color, Emily. And then they can annotate right on top of the document. So go ahead and, yep, there you go. They could be making notes, they could be highlighting important details that they're going to need to complete the activity. And the cool thing about Cami too is after they've done this and they've annotated on it, it saves all of those annotations for them. So they can do everything that they used to do in the classroom when you gave them like a physical worksheet and made all their notes and the margins and things. They can do that online too with Cami as well. Students can also insert text boxes. So if you want to scroll to the next page first, and then let's take a look at, say, question number 1, and pretend the student was going to answer question number 1. Click on the T in the toolbar on the left. Thank you. And then you would just go on over to the question and click underneath the question, and it will create a text box for you that the student can then start to type the answer in. So you're annotating right on top of the document, and you wouldn't be able to do that without Cami or DocHub or a text annotation tool like this one. And then that file can be saved and sent to the teacher or submitted in Google Classroom. One last feature that I wanted to talk to you about was there's an insert comment feature. And if you could just hover over the toolbar for me. There you go, there it is. So click on that. So have you ever been working with a student and in your CERT class or your CERT class, you're working on a language-based activity, or maybe you were a high school CERT like I was and you're supporting a student who's maybe been given some digital material and it's a lot and they have to read through it and they have to make notes and they're saying, how do I do that? Because now I have to make paper notes or open up a separate Google Doc. Well, with Cami, you don't have to do that. You can create comments in the margins right in this tool. So Emily's clicked on comment. Just click somewhere near the first question for me, like on the actual document. There we go, thank you. So what happens is you see the little circle that it dropped next to the first question. So Emily can start to type in a comment. Like, if this was something she was, studying for in the future, she could say, important, make sure to study. And then when she's done and she's saved the file, what ends up happening is it compresses the file and you see the file itself, and then in the right margin, you see the comment and a line drawn directly to the point in the document where the student has made those notes. It's a pretty awesome tool. All right, Emily, sorry, I know I talked a lot about it, but I get so excited about these tools. Over to you for useful extensions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Wendy. So yes, I will just be going over some extensions with everybody that I would recommend and things to kind of keep in mind when browsing for different extensions. So again, we've already showed quite a few extensions today, like Google Read and Write, Equatio, Cami. So these are all Google Chrome extensions, which can be downloaded from the Chrome web store. So these are some pictures of some extensions that I came across lately that I think are very helpful for students for a variety of reasons. So when I was exploring, some of the searches that I put in the Chrome web store were productivity, organization, time management, specific areas and skill sets that I think students might want some extra help with and who might need that extra support. So the Omnibox timer is just a timer for students to kind of keep on track of their work and manage their time. Block Site here is just a web blocker. I know in our first webinar for assistive technology, Wendy mentioned Focus Me. So again, just another way for students to limit the distractions on their computers. So these are some examples right here. So it's important to find the appropriate extensions that can support students in the way that works for them. And once you find those extensions that you think would work, pinning them to the toolbar for easy access is a great strategy to kind of have them all organized. So before, when I was showing Google Read and Write and Equatio and Cami, they were all in my toolbar, so it made opening them up very easy. So one that I quickly wanted to note was momentum. So this is one that I came across recently, and I will just quickly show you what it looks like. So I have momentum already added up here in my toolbar. So when I open a new tab, what momentum does is kind of create my page to look like this. So it just kind of has some cool features on it. So for today, you can kind of determine what tasks or what goal do you have set for today. What is your main focus for today? So for students, it can maybe be one thing that they want to get done, whether it's their homework or a skill they want to practice. You can write whatever it is in that bar, and it'll kind of help them keep on track of what it is that they want to focus on. So now when it's completed, it can give students incentive to kind of have that throughout the day as a constant reminder, and then they can click the check mark box that to show that it's been completed. And then just two more things I want to quickly highlight. In the bottom right corner, there's a to-do list. So I already added math in there, so you can add other to-do list items to keep on track and to kind of have them in one central location. And then in the top left corner, there's a links button. So you can add some helpful links for easy access. So I added Gmail and Google Classroom, so students are able to customize this and add appropriate links that might be beneficial for them, things that they access frequently. So it's, again, all in one central location. So it's a nice kind of calming, visually appealing extension. So it's definitely something that will help students with organization and staying productive. I will continue on in our presentation, and Wendy can take it away.
Thanks, Emily. One of the things that we tried to highlight in our previous webinar was built-in technology, and the Omnibox is also an example of that. Built-in technology that's accessible to you if you're using the Google Chrome browser. So the Omnibox, what is that? The Omnibox is the oblong box or window that you would see at the top of your browser where you would type in your URL. And you don't just have to type directly in there to go to a website anymore. The Omnibox for Chrome actually has a lot of really neat built-in features. I was planning to demonstrate some of them today, but I'm just going to only demonstrate one. What we'll do for the sake of time is I will send out, with our recording and instructional video, I'll send out a video walkthrough of all of the Omnibox tips and tricks and browser tips and tricks. And this is why. When I was working in a resource environment with students, sometimes they wouldn't get to me until the end of the day. And I don't know if you can identify with this, but they would come to me in resource for some support towards the end of the day, maybe last period with their Chromebook, and there were like 20 tabs open, right? And you're thinking, how in the world could you organize all of that? So our students with learning disabilities, often they will become overwhelmed by lots of information. They may not know to just automatically close out a tab if they're not done with it. They might be worried that they might leave it late, need it later, not know how to save it, and not know how to navigate through that problem. And oftentimes they need explicit teaching in that area. It comes down to those executive function deficits that our students with LDs and ADHD have. And so using the Omnibox, you can set timers in the Omnibox, as Emily mentioned. So we're not going to demonstrate it now, but if you're in your Omnibox, you can actually type in set 2-minute timer, and it will set a timer for that student to work against. You can edit and customize your search engine so that when the student types in a keyword, they're directed right to their Drive or right to Gmail or right to Calendar, and it eliminates multiple steps and provides a routine for them that's easy to follow. You can use the Omnibox as a calculator these days. You can type in, simple equations like, 10 times 20 equals, and it will give you the answer. Or you can do measurement conversions in the Omnibox, but you can also type in equations. So at the bottom of your slide here, we have an equation y equals 2x minus 3. If you were to type that right into the Omnibox, it would actually solve and graph it for you. So this is a great formative assessment tool that you can use with students and show them how to check work that you maybe aren't able to support them with all of the time. You could also, if you're working on collecting like terms in pre-algebra, input an equation like the one you see below, and it will collect like terms and solve the equation for you. The one tip that I am going to demonstrate though is pinning tabs. So if you could just exit the presentation mode for a second. If you take a look at the top of Emily's browser, you see all those tabs. There's got to be 12 tabs up there, and it's because we've been demonstrating and linking to various different areas. But our students come down to us sometimes and there are 20 tabs open, but maybe they only have to work on something for one class and they get confused and have to navigate through all of those tabs. So you can teach your students to pin the tabs to kind of sort of put them away without closing them in case they have some anxiety surrounding that and being worried that they might need them in the future. So by right-clicking on any one of those tabs, Emily's going to show you, you can select the pin option. And I don't know if you saw that, but what happened is it collapsed it and it threw it over to the left. So it's still open. If Em clicks on that tab, it'll take us back to Google Earth, but it's sort of shrunk it and it also put it out of the way. So it's helping to organize and explicitly teach them how to say, okay, I don't need this anymore. I need to sort and organize. I'm going to push this and move it out of the way. Over to you, Emily.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. All right. So this is our last practical application for today. So I just wanted to briefly touch on the use of mind maps and how that can be really helpful for students in planning and organizing their work. So I'm going to specifically demonstrate the Miro mind maps. So they offer a variety of ways to visually organize your ideas. So this is kind of what some of the templates look like from Miro. So they're color coded. You're able to adjust the size of the text and bubbles. It's really helpful and beneficial for students when working both independently and collaboratively. And it's compatible with a variety of devices, so very easy to use and navigate. And one thing I did want to highlight here, I know we talked a lot in our presentation today about math and language and some of the more traditional subject areas, but planning and organizing is really helpful for all sorts of subjects. So the use of mind maps is really an interdisciplinary approach to planning and organizing. So it can be really helpful for the arts, whether it's music or drama or visual arts. Those same skills, planning and organizing, are just as important and needed. So why not use these mind maps in subjects like that maybe don't require or happen to have as much writing and that sort of stuff. So just something else to note, but I will take you to our Miro tab here. So I'm just going to go and zoom in a little bit. So these are two examples of different templates that Miro offers. So if you look at the side toolbar here and press on this button, it'll take you to these different templates that are offered through Miro. So what I had on the Google slide before. And there's a variety over here of so many different boards to use and mind maps. So it's really helpful for students to kind of have that basic template that they can just kind of fill in their work. So very easy to use. So this is a traditional mind map here. So you kind of start off with your main idea and branch off to supporting points over here. And then this one was a sticky note board that I thought was kind of cool. So I started filling it in here. So I created a character development sticky note board. So it could be used for English or for drama. And I inputted some plays and characters. And then that way students, if they're asked to maybe have to fill out character traits for all the different characters that they're seeing in a play, that might be kind of overwhelming and cause them a little bit of frustration to have to organize their work. And oftentimes we're used to having to jot notes down or write it in full sentences, but having this visual element to displaying what you know about character development and sorting out your ideas is just another really cool tool to use. So a lot of times sticky note boards are done in person, so that is a great way to do it as well. But it's nice to know that the online version of the same sort of idea is offered. So yeah, Miro is really cool with using all the different sort of templates. And again, it can be used in a variety of subject areas for various grade levels as well. We'll take us back to our presentation and to our next slide over here. So, sorry, just getting rid of a pop-up here. All right, so yeah, now it is a time for us to wrap up our presentation. So as we just showed you all of those very cool demonstrations and a variety of ways to use both, actually I'll turn my camera on too, just to follow in Wendy's lead. So we wanted to highlight both Google and Microsoft Office 365 products. As Wendy mentioned earlier, tons of schools and school boards are using both. So it's really cool to see how all of these different programs and assistive technologies that we demonstrated today can be compatible on both devices. So Wendy, I'm not sure if you want to add anything else before we continue to our next slide.
Yeah, if there are any questions, please do feel free to drop them in the chat room. And Emily, I do see a question from one of our participants, and I think it's with regards to Miro, the tool that you just modeled. How does that read? Does it have accessibility features?
Let me go back and I can open it up again. Just 1 second. See, pinning all my tabs would be very helpful right now. So I'm glad Wendy showed me how to do that. So there are ways, sorry. So there are, where is it? So you can fill in text over here. So as we talked about before, a little bit about Google Read and Write being compatible with different websites. So if you open a text box here, I don't have my microphone set up on the computer that I'm displaying this right now, so I can't actually do my speech to text. But if you open up your Read and Write toolbar, you should be able to speak right into the program so that it does actually type out the text that you are saying. So in terms of accessibility and stuff, from what I've gathered so far and how I've used Miro, it does seem to offer that. And I know too with some of the devices our students use here, and sometimes when we are experiencing glitches with our internet connection and Google Read and Write and it not being as easy to use, a lot of our devices with the built-in assistive technologies that they offer do have the speech to text capabilities. So whether or not Google Read and Write is something that you are using or is compatible, it's always worth looking into the accessibility that is already built into your device, and that will translate over to a program like Miro.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a workaround as well. So if you're wanting to do mind mapping with a student, you could absolutely find a PDF version of the mind map and then open it up in Cami in your text annotation tool, and then it will become a readable file for you as well. So just always keeping in mind, as Emily, as our ATA, always says, you want to customize the tech to that student. So just because a student has a severe or has an LD doesn't mean they're always going to need text to speech or speech to text, or maybe even both of those tools. So just keeping your student in mind and customizing it. If Miro's not the right tool for them, then absolutely you can upload a mind map, like a preloaded one, through Cami and work with the student that way. We have another question, I believe. Yeah, some of the graphic organizers are limited as there is no speech to text. And so what I did when I was a high school cert and when I was teaching like learning strategies and those types of things, I had a bank of resources, you know, as we all do. And I had digitized versions of different types of mind maps because different ones appeal to different kids. Some people like linear stuff, some people like more abstract stuff. And then I would just upload them in Cami. I know from my board in Waterloo, they like Doc Hub, but I just like Cami a little bit better. And then it was then an accessible file for that student. If there are any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, but let's move on, Em, so that we're keeping time. We wanted just to let you know that at this stage in the year, resource services get pulled into the application process for Trillium. So right now we are we've reached out to all of our school boards and we've done intakes on students that have severe reading deficits and they're coming to Trillium, and we are swamped with apps right now. So we're going to be taking a little break from webinars in the near future, but we've put together a resource services website for you and a YouTube channel. So Em, if you could just click on the resource services Google site for us. We've made this site public, and so there are multiple tabs on this site. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the link, and follow us on Twitter. We're building up our Twitter base. You'll see if you follow us, but please follow us for important updates, and help us to get the message out there and help us to support all students out there with LDs and ADHD with resources that we're sharing with you. So Emily's created on the top right corner a parent tab where she's front loading resources for specifically Trillium parents, but I believe in the near future she's going to be working on some other supports for parents. And if you click on the educators tab for us, Em, if you don't mind, in resource services, there are 3 resource services consultants. I've put our names up there in our school board allocations. So if you were to call in and have an intake or have a specific question, you'd be directed to us based on the board that we cover. So that information is there. And all of the webinars that we've offered up to date have been recorded and sent out, but we've also front loaded them on this website. So please feel free to watch them time and again. Share this website with as many people. Like, please do share away with your school teams, with your teacher friends, with even with parents that are looking to understand supporting students with an LDs from the teacher's perspective. And we also have an exciting announcement. Do you want to talk about Tech Talks really quickly, Em?
Sure. So I believe Wendy has included our Tech Talk section over here, so coming soon. So as Wendy mentioned, with taking a break from webinars, with all the resource services team going out and doing these assessments, we wanted to still find ways to continue talking about technology and important things like that. So coming soon, we will be posting some short videos on our YouTube channels, just little snippets of different tech tools and cool ways to use different technology, assistive and ed tech. So there'll be short videos that you can watch, kind of tutorials or pointing out cool features of different programs and websites and extensions and apps and all of that. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming very soon on our YouTube channel.
Yep, and if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you'll get notifications every time we release a new Tech Talk. Here's your swag bag. This is a collection of websites that we've referred to today, as well as resources that we've prepared for you. So when you receive the slide deck, you'll be able to click on each of these hyperlinks and be directed to these resources. Please feel free to share freely and widely amongst your colleagues. That's it for us today. Thank you for staying on past our time. We really appreciate it. You know, we hope to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us absolutely anytime you have a question. If you have a student in mind that has a severe LD and you think they need some language remediation and they might be a good candidate for a demo school, you can reach out to us. If you have a question about the presentation today or any sort of assistive or educational technology related question, please feel free to reach out, and we would love to hear from you and support you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today.